Hello, I'm Roger Chittum. This is a lightly edited version of a presentation I made to my 50th class reunion at the College of Worcester in June 2011. When we were born in 1939, only our parents and grandparents thought we were special. We were called Depression babies, but we were destined to have unprecedented prosperity. In January 1954, Life magazine proclaimed us the luckiest generation. Never before so much for so few, the article said. Depression's babies have pick of high-paying jobs. Inside it said, good fortune stirs great expectations. There were two parts to the American dream, increasing prosperity for everybody and individual upward mobility. Part 1. Even if we stay in our parents' socioeconomic class, we will have much more inflation-adjusted income than our parents did at equivalent life stages. And our children will be much more prosperous than us, and so on. Part 2. Any of us can rise above the economic status into which we were born. Rags to riches is a realistic goal for anyone who gets an education, works hard, and plays by the rules. The American dream had life and death implications. This graph shows Americans' life expectancy at birth from 1940 to 2007. When we were born, our life expectancy was about 62 years, meaning half of us were projected to be dead 10 years ago. But there were great improvements, and now average life expectancy at birth is over 78 years. The black line on the graph is the average for all of us. The gold line at the top is white females. The purple line at the bottom is black males. Every group improved at least 14 years, and black females gained 22 years. In 1977, men of all income levels reaching age 65 had a life expectancy of 80 or 81. Since then, life expectancies for top half earners at age 65 increased to 86.5 years, while bottom half earners increased only to 81.5. So now, for retirees, there's a 5-year life expectancy gap associated with income levels. For more than 99% of American families, being employed or self-employed is absolutely critical, because low income, middle income, and even most well-off families get essentially all their incomes from wages and salaries. The top line of this chart from Piketty and Says shows that even in the 90th to 95th percentiles, 90% of gross income comes from wages and salaries. Even in the 95th to 99th percentiles, wages and salaries are 82% of gross income. So basically, no job, no income, no American dream, and premature death. We lucky ones were blessed by a great explosion of job creation. Here we see the percentage of Americans 16 years of age and older who are employed. The red trend line hovered at 56 to 57% from 1948 until about 1968. Then it took off like a rocket and gained 7 percentage points. But since 2000, it has plummeted back to where it was 30 years ago. What happened? Women took jobs, that's what happened. Their employment to population ratio, the purple line at the bottom, increased 27 percentage points from 31% in 1948 to 58% in 2000. Meanwhile, the ratio for men, the blue line on top, declined 12 percentage points. The middle line is both sexes, the gray bars are recessions. The ratios for both sexes have been declining since 2000, and men suffered more than women in the Great Recession. This graph is the longest series I could find on race. It starts in 1973. The gold and purple lines at the bottom are black and white females, and they are close together throughout the period. The employment ratio for black men, the green line, was generally 8 to 14 percentage points below white men, the top line. Here we have the employment-population ratio by age group. The red line at the top represents the prime working age 25 to 54-year-olds. It hovered around 80% for 20 years before declining to 75% during the Great Recession. Unexpectedly, the ratio for those 55 and older, the black line at the bottom, has actually been increasing since 1993 and has hardly declined at all in the Great Recession. In stark contrast, the 21st century is becoming a calamity for 16 to 24-year-olds, the blue line in the middle. After hovering around 60% for 20 years, their ratio started dropping in 2000, dropped even faster in the Great Recession, and is now only 45%. Part 1 of the American Dream required rising real wages and salaries for doing basically the same jobs. This shows the average inflation-adjusted hourly wage for the 5 out of 6 private industry workers who are not bosses. From 1947 to 1973, it increased at a compound annual rate of 2.2%, meaning it doubled in 33 years or about one generation. But in 1973, the average real wage totally stalled and is now right where it was then. We didn't know it yet, but the American dream for the average worker died 38 years ago. Family incomes kept increasing 2 more years as more and more families had 2 incomes. Still, the bottom 20% of families, the blue line, are now right where they were in 1975. The real income of the median family, the middle line, rose so slowly that it would take more than 150 years to double, and almost all those gains were between 1993 and 1999. Although the 95th percentile family, which brings in at least $200,000 per year, the top line, did fine for a while longer, real income growth stopped for it too in 1999. In the 21st century, only the top 1%, and especially the top 1/10 and top 1/100th of 1%, have lived part 1 of the American dream. This shows the ratio of CEO pay to average production workers' pay. The ratio was about 25 in 1973 when worker pay got stuck, but CEO pay kept rising generously. Since 1998, the CEO pay ratio has been over 200 in 9 out of 12 years. Hedge fund managers did even better. Well, if incomes are rising only at the top rungs of the ladder, individuals can still climb to high rungs through hard work, talent, and education, right? Luckily, it worked for us, but not so much for our children and especially our grandchildren. This shows the percentage of sons' incomes that is statistically explained by their fathers' incomes. In 1950, the correlation was only 40%, and it declined to 32% in 1980. But in the next 20 years, it increased to 58% and is probably higher now. Horatio Alger visions are being replaced by high and rising class barriers. The luckiest generation surfed through life on a big wave of job creation and upward mobility. Unfortunately, unless trends are reversed, the theme song for our children and grandchildren may be this.